Hello there, Michael.
Hi, David. How are you?
Very well, thanks. And yourself?
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Lovely. It's a beautifully hot day today in Reading. Sadly, we were based in central Reading, so I'm just based around the Forbury Gardens. So obviously, very sad what happened at the weekend.
Absolutely.
Our thoughts with those people who obviously kind of were affected by that. It's very sad. But kind of in the office now, so it's the first one I've done from the office. I think we're working from here. It's not mandated, but we're working from here every week, and I've started coming once a week. So this is my first one here. So it's good. And you're in your office as well, Michael.
I am. Yeah. Well, I'm fortunate in that my office is a short 5-minute walk away from my house. So
Sure.
it's obviously given me some opportunity to get a bit of a different working environment from the one we've all been getting used to in the last few months.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's handy. It's yeah, I think we've all appreciated many things about lockdown, but also, the things we've missed and the social contact and just being in a different workspace has been something we've missed. So I'm happy to come here every now and again just to focus the mind.
Yeah, and you've got the logo in the background, so it's good marketing. So yeah,
Exactly. Not now.
I've got it myself. I've got Ayrton Senna instead. So yeah. So just to kind of introduce, as I always do, GCS is a technology recruitment business based around the world. We connect expert talent to innovative companies. As part of GCS, we have this brand which is GCS Connect, which really does that and tries to do it through webinars, events, seminars. And generally connecting kind of talented people together within the tech industry to try to help people recruit better and build really good teams. Michael is the CEO for Enable Technology, which is based in Northwest London. Been going for 6 years. I've known him for quite a few years. We've shared a few coffees together through different parts of his 20-year career. And I'm really interested and excited to kind of speak to him today because I feel now going forward that we've coming out of lockdown. So what I'm really asking the leaders about now is how they're planning kind of coming out of it rather than how they're dealing with it, how they're planning to thrive in the post-lockdown situation rather than survive the current. So that's from myself, Michael. Anything you want to add? And obviously I've introduced yourself, but do you want to tell us a bit more about Enable, what you do?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so we're in a sector known as managed service providers broadly, which is in layman's terms, a company that helps other businesses manage and run their IT. So typically we're seen as the outsourced IT department for our clients. That stretches across three main sections for us. Consultancy, which really comes back to the origins of the business, which was that we would take a more consultative approach to understanding our clients' ambitions and making sure the technology was designed and delivered in such a way that would help them achieve their business goals. Sure. The challenge was to take that consultative approach and move it into the ongoing services and delivery of IT solutions. So we kind of stretch across those three areas: consultancy, solutions, and services. Sure. And for the majority of our clients, especially the ones we've got long-term partnerships with, they'll seek us, they'll call us up just for advice, just for a discussion, and that's kind of speaks about what we are. We're not really a sales-led business. We don't have any salespeople. I'm probably the pathetic excuse of a salesperson, but we start from a position of technology and really understanding our clients' ambitions.
Yeah, and I think that's important because generally that's how you build those strong long-term relationships, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, we I'm quite probably to the detriment of the speed of growth of the business, but I don't put too much pressure on targets. The important thing for me is clients that respect us, that will call us up for advice that they can trust, and that in itself generates referrals and introductions to other businesses, which obviously, as we know, a referral is worth 1,000 cold leads. So it's much more important to me that our clients value what we do for them.
And it's that alumni network sometimes, isn't it? You work with someone somewhere and then they move and then they kind of call you up and said, well, I used to work here.
Yeah, and that's pretty much how we've always generated business, just from clients that understand, do know when they speak to Enable, they're getting sound advice. We don't have specific products that we try and sell. We certainly have some sweet spots and some areas which we have most skill in, and that meets well with what we believe is what clients need these days in terms of getting the most out of IT.
And how has the last 3 months been for you? I mean, we spoke earlier to prep this up, but I think it's not been awful. It was kind of pretty steady.
It's been okay, yeah. I think we are in IT in a fortunate position, even validated, I suppose, by the fact that IT was given key worker status, which
Yeah,
speaks to the value. I think certainly during that period, kind of early March through to lockdown, and the 2 or 3 weeks after was certainly one of the most busy periods that I've had in my career, really, with lots of clients. Especially the ones where they had plans to enable more remote working, to enable more cloud services. A lot of that happened in a very, very short space of time. So we had a valued role, I think, from our clients, by our clients, which they appreciated, and without fault, we had our clients up and running, from day one. So in that respect, I'm very grateful to be in this sort of industry. Similarly, though, we're a services business, so we need to make sure our clients survive, and we have clients across many sectors, including recruitment and including hospitality,
yeah,
and other areas that I'm sure have had more challenges. So I wouldn't say it hasn't been a challenge for us. We have lots of on-site work that obviously can't happen. We've had to adjust our working style. Obviously, the team is all working remotely. For us as a business, that was that was seamless, because we do that anyway, and obviously we eat our own dog food, we use all the cloud services, we're all mobile, so
leading from the front, as it were. So.
For sure. And that cultural change, I guess the thing that we've all felt in terms of how do we retain the team spirit, the team culture, how do we keep people motivated. We've got some younger guys who really have had to learn themselves how to work autonomously, where normally they might need a bit more of a cuddle. We've really empowered them to be able to do their job, and to understand the importance of delivering outcomes rather than just sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day, which isn't good for the heart.
That's interesting. I mean, obviously your kind of hiring strategy maybe is to kind of hire juniors, and that's something we've done within recruitment and within GCS. And then you start to think about how you might train these people, because training is one thing that you can't really, I mean, obviously you can, but it doesn't work so well remotely, does it? How are you thinking about it? So if you take a new, let's say someone with 1 year's experience on, and you need to kind of take them through that path, what's your thoughts about how you might train them correctly, let's say in this new environment?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have, I suppose, in any discipline, we have desk-based learning, if you like, off-the-job learning, and then on-the-job learning. And I think they're both important. I've certainly seen throughout my career lots of people that have got all the certifications in the world, but haven't necessarily done it in the real world, and don't necessarily have the skills to back it up. And that's not helped, I think, by the fact that we're in a Googling generation. I remember when I started my career, to find the answer to something, I'd have to go back to my textbooks and really try to work out what was the fundamental. Exactly, the fundamental. And it's great that we can Google and find answers, but I really encourage my guys to understand why that is. So we place a strong emphasis on understanding the fundamentals of IT rather than kind of just the end result. One thing that's worked very well for us, and this is as much about training as it is, I guess, team spirit and culture, is that we have a daily team call at 10 a.m. every single day. That's worked really well, and it's become, obviously we have business of the day to discuss, whether that's project work or any client issues that we need to talk about, and we talk about that in the round, which has been great. But it also becomes more of a chat. Very often we'll keep the meeting running for an hour or two, just people carrying on working and trying to generate that the feel of being together, for sure. And that's great. Everyone gets on well, and that's one thing which, for sure, if lockdown was something that was going to continue, and obviously we don't know how it's going to play out in the next year even, I think that challenge is going to continue, but I suppose it's important that we've got the tools to make sure that we can stay as close as a team as possible.
Yeah. So this is obviously a challenge for us as business leaders. And you've, as I said, been in business for 22 years in many senior kind of positions with larger companies. What significant kind of business and technology challenges have you had to kind of deal with in as a leader in the past?
Yeah. I guess the most significant business challenge, I'm a techie. That's my background. I never went into IT to start a business. I always felt that I had something to offer. I felt that a lot of people don't take that consultative approach. They don't really understand business enough to understand how they can deliver technology to best support that. So
well, that's interesting you saying that, because when we met before, when you were working with us in other customers, I think Huntswood was a company that you worked with before, I always had from yourself that you were thinking about the tech, but also thinking about the business as well, weren't you? You're like putting it into the context of how the tech would be used as opposed to just the tech itself.
Exactly. And I was fortunate, very fortunate. In fact, my career I have milestones of good fortune in terms of starting off in an IT assistant role for a small printing company where the IT manager fell out with the business literally 2 weeks after I started, and I was given this IT manager role as a 21-year-old, so I was kind of chucked in the deep end at various points, which, were it not for these kind of different points of fortune along my career, I don't think I would have picked up that kind of business level exposure that I had. So starting the business, the biggest challenge obviously was, at the time when I started it, I had all 3 of my kids at the time, and it was how do we start a business and keep paying the bills? And it was, when you're talking about a services business, there's great benefit to having what for us is a majority recurring revenue business. That's been actually at this time certainly invaluable. But at the same time, how do you do that and man a service desk? You need to employ people. So I didn't come in it with any seed capital. I, again, got very fortunate at the very start with a couple of big clients that really, really helped us out. And I'm delighted to say they're still clients now. And that good fortune, it's very hard to say, how do I, what advice can I give when I feel that in many cases I've been in the right place at the right time. But perhaps you make your own luck. I think, again, my drive has always been to help companies out with their technology. And
if you're running a successful business, that what kind of comes through, isn't it? And I think the challenges that you have, the challenges that all businesses have now, generally have a technology solution, don't they? We can't do this. This is the technology solution.
Yeah, it's changed immeasurably. When I started, it was obviously servers in racks and in data centers. It was all about hardware. Even the IT industry was really about selling tin for large margins, and then software licenses, etc. And then my role throughout was kind of building the tools on top of that. As we know now, there's no money in hardware, and for many businesses, and I try not to prescribe a solution generalistically, but for most businesses of a smaller size, certainly cloud services are where you get the most value, where you get the most return on your investment, rather than investing in large servers which will ultimately need to be refreshed. We have that hybrid world now of platforms like Azure and Amazon Web Services, where we can have server-based tools, but again, without needing that tin. So that shift, and as you mentioned, really the idea now that we're talking about the systems that go on it, and actually more about outcomes. What do we need to do? We need a CRM system to help manage our clients. We need a ticketing system to really tie into that. We want it to back into our financer application. It really is now a lot more about integrating. I almost see our role as a service broker. We don't necessarily build email servers anymore. That's pretty much all I did for the first 10, 15 years of my career, was build Active Directory servers, Exchange servers, finance applications, etc. As we know now, most of that can come in as a service, but that doesn't mean you don't have the same rigor around security, around resilience, around reliability. There's just different ways of looking at it and different ways to measure that.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that kind of service broker element, because I guess, for someone like myself coming from outside a technology point of view, we've got an IT team, so they make those decisions, but for someone running a smaller business, making the right decisions on your tech, it could have broken you in the last 3 months if you hadn't made the right decisions on your tech. And we've got examples of companies calling us up saying, we can't work remotely, help us, as I'm sure you do. There's companies that weren't set up for it at all. And that broking element is obviously kind of being that honest broker, isn't it? I look at these different solutions, and this is the one I think is best for you, and it won't be the same for different companies, will it?
Absolutely not, and that's where trust comes into it. Obviously it's a well-known concept of trusted advisor, where we've always tried to get to that place with our clients. Unfortunately, we have. It's difficult when you get a new client come in. You think, well, they've come from probably one of two situations. Either they're a growing business that have always looked after the IT themselves. Typically, it's the CEO who's a bit of a tinkerer. And as we know, it's very easy to bring in IT services these days without too much technical skill. But that can sometimes mean, there are some holes there that need to be filled. Or you're coming from another IT company and you've not had a great experience. So it's our job to kind of credentialize ourselves and for them to understand that what we're really trying to do is ensure they get the most out of technology. And if they trust us, then they will realize that we don't, like I said, we don't have tick boxes, we don't have quotas, we don't try and do things for our own benefit. Obviously, there's benefit to our clients growing, to the relationship with us growing in terms of headcount, in terms of licenses, etc. But these are all quite small incrementals. For me, it's just about building value in the business through increasing our client base, increasing their user count and license count, and the two go hand in hand. And I think it ends up with quite a nice synergy between our clients because they understand what we're there for.
You enable them to be as successful as possible, my friend.
It's not an accident.
That's a good line. You can have that one. And we've obviously coming out of this now, we're seeing more green shoots. And you've led this business now for 6 years successfully. How do you think the last few months of lockdown have changed you as a leader? I mean, you said that you didn't have the remote, but how do you think it will change you as a leader going forward?
I think for all of us, especially if we're running businesses, there's always been that remote working element that seems to have come with an element of trust. I don't think there are too many businesses that had a blanket, you can all work from home. I would probably guess that most business leaders had kind of a flag on some staff members that said, you know what, I trust them to do the job. Therefore they can work from home. I think given the situation that's been forced on us where we can't check on our guys and girls for 8.5 hours a day, we can't check they're sitting by their computers, it becomes much more about being outcome driven. So what I realized very early on, and actually to be honest, this wasn't a new revelation, I realized this anyway, is that if I trust my employees to manage our client systems, which, IT is a huge position of trust, and I think that's very often.
It can go horribly wrong, can't it? So that's huge trust there straight away.
It's a massive responsibility, it really is. And if we've vetted them correctly, and if we brought in the right staff members, and GCS actually, you've helped me with many staff members, all very successfully, and if I trust them to do the job, then I trust them to do it from home. And it definitely is more outcome based. So as I said, I've been encouraging my guys to get fresh air, to take some time out. If they're really struggling at home, if they just to get a change of scenery, we help each other out. And that's, so that trust element, it certainly will change how I view future hires, because actually now we're saying, okay, it's one thing to say, I trust you to do the job, but what's your home environment like? Are you comfortable? Can we make sure we set you up in such a way that for as long as this lasts? I think it's interesting because the dreaded phrase new normal, we're not sure yet. I'm not convinced that we will. I've certainly seen some clients that are definitely talking about smaller offices, in one case 0 office and a complete remote working solution, which is an amazing thing. How that looks in 6 months and 12 months when please God we're through this, I'm sure that you can't replace face-to-face contact.
No, I think trust is such a huge thing, isn't it? As a leader, you want to make sure everyone's doing the right thing, and kind of coming back to that leadership element. If you can see what everyone's doing on your sales floor, in your IT office, and I think as a leader you feel what they're doing, right? But I think it's made us question that, and also made us, like you said, trust people more, which you would hope would actually lead to a much better kind of working environment, right? There's more trust with people that you work with, then you should have a better working arrangement, and the team should work better. And for yourself, you're kind of coming on to, you're back in the office now. How's it been for you personally, kind of working from home? Have you got a good setup? What's the kind of positive size for you?
So I've been very fortunate in as much as when I started the business, I said it was 2014. I think it was the summer of 2014 when we had an amazing summer and I had a bit of spare time, and I built my own office in the garden. And I do mean built it. I bought one of these kits that I built, and everyone said I was mad, and my dad said I was mad, but it was actually one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. So as a result, we had this 3-man desk a 3-desk office in the garden, and that's actually where the business started. So it literally did start in the garden. And so I've had that working space. Ironically, my wife, who also works for herself, had, whilst I sort of graduated to an office away from home, she moved into there to do her thing. So I've actually been, having said all that, I've been relegated to the dining room. But it's very comfortable. I'm fortunate because my kids are, they're 12, 10 and 7. So young, but not too young that they can't generally be sort of self-motivated. If my wife heard this, she would absolutely say that's not the case, because she's
all on YouTube, my friend, so she will.
I know. One bit we might want to edit out, but she's been great, and she's really, and actually, to be honest, in whatever work environment, whatever your home environment is, for me, I've been very fortunate to be able to carry on with her support and with the kids' support to an extent.
But shout out to wives and partners. I mean,
no question.
Worked who've spoken to. It's been a tough time, changing these things, and I think as well, children as well. I think I've learned a lot about my own children, about how they're able to organise themselves and what kind of a bit more about them. I mean, you spend more time with them, really. Like I'm sure you before were working, long hours, didn't see your kids so much. It's quite nice to do those types of things.
It is. And funnily enough, as we're talking about some of the kids, a couple of kids going back to school, my middle son actually said one of the main reasons he didn't want to is because he thought we were gonna miss out on the family dinners that we now have. It used to be once a week, whatever happens, we'd have a dinner together. Now it's been every night, and it's been
that's right.
It's been great. It's been great, and I promised him we're going to carry on. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. I think hopefully we'll take a few of these learns kind of forward personally. So you're obviously thinking now about the business kind of going forward. What plans do you kind of have for the next stage of the business? Are you planning at the moment, or are you still kind of dealing with the here and now?
No, I'm absolutely planning. I think certainly I think every single business in the country has gone into survival mode, but at the same time, I always knew there would be opportunities that would come out the other side of it. So in our space, I've no doubt that many clients or many businesses didn't have such a great experience with their IT company. They would probably have found out at that point that maybe they weren't there for them, or maybe they didn't understand the technology best. So I think, whilst there's no question, I think it's hard to win business over Zoom and over Teams, and that will be a challenge. Equally, I think there's going to be opportunities from businesses that will come out and say, what, we've got through this bit. Let's now start to talk to other IT companies. And I would say, wouldn't I? But you'd want to look for a company that really understands the technology, really understands what us in terms of a future client is trying to achieve. So it's just, how do we kind of latch onto those opportunities? And as I said earlier, that's done in the context of not really being a sales-led business. So I wouldn't say we've got we don't exactly. We don't have a huge sales engine. So it's about me getting out to our existing clients to kind of let them know that any referral opportunities are always gratefully received, and try to find those opportunities for clients that really aren't quite as happy with how things have gone, and show them a different way of doing things.
And if someone came into your business now, a referral or something like that, and they were thinking about, how do I set myself forward? I mean, what were the key pieces of advice that you would give to a CEO of a mid-sized business that was looking to transform digitally? What would you say the key elements are to bear in mind?
It's a good question. I think as we mentioned earlier, we're probably past the, I don't want to say past the peak, because that's got so many different connotations now, but we're in a world now where many businesses are already on Office 365 or G Suite, or already using cloud services. One of the things which I think is important now, as we look at things like Microsoft Teams, for instance, which is a huge growth area for Microsoft. And it was pre-corona, it was already an area they're putting huge amounts of investment in, because what Teams does is create not just, it's interesting that Zoom actually has taken probably the lion's share of the public psyche, I suppose, in terms of online meetings.
It's interesting to talk as a layperson. We have Teams, which we use for our internal conversations, because it's easier. Like, I've got them all in the directory. We have Zoom, which I use for these types of conversations. It's kind of easier to kind of speak to someone externally in a kind of conversation.
That's a really common. It's a really common position, actually, that's come out of this. But interestingly, Teams can absolutely be used with external parties. You can have phone numbers added into conference calls. You do need to, there's an extra service for that people might not know about. But again, it's just about, as a business, if I was as a non-technical business, if I was looking for how can we better work together. These are the sorts of things which it may be that you've rushed into Teams or you've rushed into 365. It's about utilizing now that investment. So, Office 365 is not very expensive. It's an operational cost. It ticks on. But how we get most value out of that is to look at the other elements. So, for instance, not to come back to Teams, but it's the one where I think we have the most opportunity. We have tools like Planner, which is effectively project management, a bit like
Slack type thing.
Yeah, a bit like Trello and Slack, if you like. So you have certainly the Slack element, which is a chat-based communication. For those that know Trello, it's more of a almost a bulletin board, a job board way of managing things. And Teams has elements like that, like Planner, like Tasks, which is more like a to-do. They actually bought a company called Wunderlist, which I manage everything with to-dos now with lists. And it used to be obviously lists on a bit of paper that everyone does. Using Planner and Tasks, what you can do is take your projects, create them to tasks, assign them to people, assign them to multiple people. In fact, check in on them, communicate as a team using those tasks, and then it all comes back to the plan. Some really nice tools without necessarily going out and getting another third-party application to do a lot of this stuff. You can find it now baked into Teams. Shift patterns. We run Shift Pattern, and actually only a few weeks ago started using Microsoft Shifts, which is again just a tab that appears in Teams, allows you to create shift patterns, allows guys to go in there, select the shifts they want, and then filter through to calendaring and alerting like that.
And that's the thing, is driving that kind of communication, isn't it? Through it's a communication tool, but I guess what you're saying is it links into a number of other different kind of business management elements that are useful, whereas, let's be honest, Zoom doesn't. So it's about having those different conversations. And I'm sure that Google have probably got an option on, like you said, on G Suite that probably does quite a lot of the stuff, or you could build something on AWS, and it's really about speaking to someone and understanding what's best for them, what kind of cloud services they've already got, what sort of environment they've already got.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, for instance, it's interesting around Microsoft, isn't it? Because when you go through your kind of 20-year career in IT, Microsoft has its, big moments, doesn't it? And do you feel then Microsoft has a good chance of kind of taking back the crown? I know it's still like hugely popular, successful, big profit company, but you'd think like Google, Apple, and companies like that have kind of taken away a bit of the luster recently. Do you think they've got a chance of becoming the leaders again?
I believe so. I 5 years ago, 5 to 10 years ago, I think certainly when those challenges came in, and when I think there was some feeling that there would be comparative tools, as you say, like G Suite, which is great. And we're not, as I said, as a business, we are a Microsoft partner. We're also a Google partner. We don't necessarily hang our hat fully on one side or the other. But I think with Satya Nadella coming in, with cloud services being something that Microsoft really focused everything on, I do think they now offer the best range of services for most businesses. Again, without prescribing a solution for anything. That's right. I actually found my original Microsoft certified professional card back in the day. It was a card from 1999, my first Microsoft certification.
What number were you? Because it's quite you guys, it's quite important to know the number, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a six-digit number.
Okay. So you need to be like 4 or 5 figure, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not quite that. So not quite that old.
So kind of coming out to what other opportunities do you see for kind of leaders at the moment within this business climate? You talked a lot about trust. You talked about those services. Do you think companies will need to reassess the way they've been working in order to take the advantage of this new business climate? Yeah.
Well, I think as we all face the challenge of making sure we've got stable businesses, and unfortunately, as we know, there's going to be some casualties along the way. For me personally, it's about ensuring that our overheads are as low as they need to be, without necessarily cutting vital corners. Whether that for a lot of people is office space, I certainly think this. If there's a give and take, as we know that if we're being squeezed on our top line, then perhaps reducing our overheads through being more creative with our workspace is something that we'd have to do. Again, where you have situations where you've got aging hardware, when we come to the technology that you may need to replace, there are different ways of doing that as well. There are things like virtual desktop environments, which have been talked about for years and have been around for years, but haven't ever really, I don't think, grabbed the market share that that some of the companies like VMware would want them to.
Yeah.
What it could enable though is for some clients, especially those that have traditional, what we call fat applications. They're not necessarily cloud services, but they need to be run on a desktop computer rather than sort of through a web interface.
Yeah.
It enables them to sweat the assets a bit longer. So they might have desktop hardware that isn't great, but let's say if you've got 100 members of staff and 100 PCs that need replacing, that's a huge investment. Using VDI, especially if it's VDI as a service, so you've got Microsoft Virtual Desktop, which is again a fairly new tool from Microsoft that is a way of remoting into a virtual desktop. What it means is the computer you're using doesn't really need any power at all. Yeah,
it's just a device for accessing much better kit.
Exactly. Exactly. And actually also has benefits in terms of security, in terms of remote working and flexible working. So there are opportunities there. And it's, as I said, I'm certainly not, I wouldn't say that's a solution for all businesses, but where the conditions are right, I think there's an opportunity to go down that route and explore, certainly as a proof of concept, I think, to begin with, what that could look like.
So to wrap this up, you feel confident about technology's capacity to help people become successful kind of going forward?
Yeah, for sure. I think, interestingly, when we went into lockdown, there was obviously a lot of concern about internet bandwidth and about the ability for the resilience of the tools that we use. I guess on an individual level, certainly some people have been challenged with their home internet connections, but in general, we've had a couple of outages. Microsoft had a couple of outages. Zoom have had a couple of outages, but I think things have worked pretty well. And it could have been a lot different. I think it's a bit like the Y2K thing. I think we very quickly thought we could have this mass internet shutdown, which fortunately doesn't seem to have happened.
No, that's right. I think most of the shutdowns I've had have been my wife turning off the router by accident, if you know what I mean. So
something can't be controlled
arguments in our house, I can tell you. So probably more for my kids actually, because they can't play Roblox or something like that. Well, Mike, it's been great to speak to you today. It's really, really good to hear that your business is still kind of remaining successful, and that there are tools within technology and stuff that can help all leaders kind of run their businesses more profitably and more successfully. So great to speak to you. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thanks, David. I enjoyed it.
Cheers.
You too. Take care.